Welcome back to Partum the Mess, a podcast about humorous, inspirational, and educational experiences presented by first-time moms trying to navigate parenthood and staying sane doing it. I'm your host, Brittany, and today I'm joined by Cody.
Hi.
And Jess.
Hey.
This is episode 13, and today we'll catch up with you, and then in a little bit we'll be joined by a special guest, Laurel Stark, where she's going to talk to us about micro-preemies. But first, let's get going with how we've been doing the last week. It's been a little bit different, shifting to doing these online, or virtually, I suppose I should say. But how's your week been otherwise?
Our week has been pretty good. I hurt my shoulder on Sunday.
Oh, yeah.
And I just realized how many things I lift on a regular basis. If it's not, Emmett has a bunch of like little car toys like that are big, bikes and cars and a little piano we have. And then there's laundry and then lifting him all the time. And I couldn't do any of it. And I was like, this is really, this is impactful when I have one less arm. But luckily I was able to like accidentally pop something back into place. I don't know. But it's fixed now. So yeah.
Oh, awesome. So Eden didn't have to do anything.
No.
Magic?
I was scared to have him do anything with the chance that it might make it worse. And I was also hesitant to go to the doctor because they cost money. So I was just like, I'll leave it alone. I iced it a little bit, heated it a little bit, and then yeah, luckily it just went back into place.
How painful was it? Like on the doctor scale, 1 being just fine, 10 is like
I'm dying? Yeah.
I don't know, you're dead.
Yeah. No.
Oh, so it's like a 10?
No, probably. No.
Oh, okay.
It may have been like higher pre-labor because I didn't really understand what dying felt like. Like I thought I was, like before when things would hurt, like they'd be really painful. Yeah, I'd be like,
you're level
this
10.
is really bad. And then I went through labor, and I'm like, I'm good. It's fine. I remember the pain of labor. I'm fine.
Yeah,
my thumb is cut off. I'm okay. It's not as bad as I felt in labor. But I would say on the scale, back to the topic, it's probably like a 4 or a 5.
Do you actually remember the pain of labor, or do you just remember that it was bad? Because I don't. I don't really remember it.
I don't know. It reminds me of when I got my teeth knocked out in cheer. It's just I remember being in a lot of pain and like not enjoying the process, but I can't replicate the pain, And it's I don't know. It's weird. Yeah. It's true that you forget some things. Like I can't my body can't remember what that felt like. I don't remember that, but I do remember losing it. I do remember being like, yeah, this is it. I'm done. I'm going to die if I don't.
I feel like there's a reason for that. I feel like people would only have one kid and never again if we couldn't like magically forget. Because I don't remember it. Like, I can't go back. I can't put myself in that position again. I do know it was the worst pain I've ever felt in my life. I do know I felt like I was dying. But it's from this position, I'm like, I did it. I could do it again. And I don't know what miracle that is, where that comes from.
Miracle or voodoo? Witchcraft?
I don't know. But for some reason, I'm like, I think I could make it through. And if you go back and talk to me in labor, I'd be like, do not ever do this again. Like, you're literally going to die. You would do anything to get out of this right now. So don't do it again. Yeah,
there was one moment during it that I'm like, I don't think I want any more kids. But just for part of it.
So today I was actually talking to 2 high school friends about something very similar. And I can't remember what brought that up. But I think I asked them something like, how did you know that you're ready for more kids, something along those lines. And so I think I said there's 2 friends, and one of them, I said to her, you don't get a say because I already know that you professed not wanting any more kids while you're pregnant with your second one. Like, she didn't know she was pregnant. She was like, I'm having no more kids. And so I said, you didn't choose. You don't get a, but the other one, I can't remember what she said, but we got talking about this, and oh no, I do remember the other one said, I think it was this momentary lapse, or I guess it would be a lapse of insanity, but a moment of insanity and hormones. And I thought, maybe that's what's happening to me, because as I'm weaning with nursing little less and less, of course your hormones are going to be affected, you know. And then I feel like moms are always kind of insane. So I'm all like thinking
but
about
your body's
this
saying it. Your body's like, hey, you're not pregnant. You're not nursing anymore. You're ready.
Yeah,
Now's the
I think
time.
my body's broken though, because at like 4 months old, there was a time where Emmett was sleeping, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm ready. I'm ready for baby at 4 months old." And then the next day, he woke up and had like 3 blowouts in a day, and he got sick the next day. And I was like,
"Yeah,
what was I thinking?"
Was
I was talking about it. We were talking about it at 2 months. But that's when he was sleeping through the night and hardly ever crying and was just an angel. And I think just a few weeks ago where TJ was like, I'm not ready. We're not ready.
They trick you.
I'm like, no,
that's what happens.
We're not.
That's the bottom line for me is that like they have these moments where they're so cute, and then your mind is like, yeah, you're killing it. You can do 5. And then like reality hits, they wake up or you lose sight of them for 2 seconds and you're like, oh my gosh. Yeah, this is hard.
Yeah. The friend that I said was pregnant when she said she wasn't having any more kids. She said, your kids are really cute, so I'll give you permission to make as many as you want. I don't want any more kids, but you can have as many.
Thank you
and
for
I
that.
said to her, I said, right now, I want as many as I can have, but that's moment to moment, because, you know, I might change my mind in a moment. I'm like, I mean, good thing there isn't, I don't really believe that there's like, be careful what you wish for generally, you know, like you said, it's been written in the stars. Like now you're getting 5 kids at once. You know? Yeah.
Be like Jon and Kate +8. They had the, do you know that show?
Is that
or those people?
No, I don't know them. Are they like
they had
5
twins?
twins?
I love that show.
I don't know. I don't know that one.
Show.
It's old.
I was like an 8-year-old.
Oh,
I was all about Jon and Kate +8.
It's pretty old, but their kids are 16 now. But they had twins, and then they wanted to try for one more, and they did. I think they were on Clomid. I don't think they did IVF. I can't remember, but yeah, she had 6.
Oh, IVF.
So she had 2,
oh my
and
gosh.
then 6. Yeah,
are Jon and
and
Kate
they got their
parents?
own TV show. Yeah.
That's
they got
the way
divorced,
we're gonna make it.
They got divorced though.
There was one point that they were like extraordinarily rich. They made so much money from their show.
Oh, man.
I liked watching it. I like that show.
I did too. I miss it sometimes. They tried to do like comebacks of like Kate +8 or like Kate goes on a date. I don't know what it is, but
yeah. Anything that rhymes.
They were all so yeah. There's lots that rhyme a lot, but they were all so bad. It was bad.
Kate Bake.
Kate is late.
No, just stop.
A bunch of videos of her being late.
Is she pregnant? That's where it all starts. Late. That's funny. I mean the show, because I bet you said it was when you were little, and it's like before YouTube and all that. Well, actually, I don't know about when you were little. I don't know when YouTube started, but I just mean like there was now. You know, everybody has their own show or whatever, and like I said, Five to Love is like they have the parents, 2 older boys, and then the quintuplets, and they, I'm sure, make their living on these like videos with these super cute kids, and I love them. I'm like, America's sweethearts right there, you know. They're just so great. But I told Phil, I said, if we have multiples again, you better start learning how to make videos, because we're not gonna make it otherwise. He was like, gotta
cash in on that.
I know. Well, Jess, how have you been?
We've been okay. Nothing really like crazy new over here, as with most people, I'm sure, right now. Not going places. But I've been really kind of frustrated recently because, well, I talked about Jamie's issues, his digestive issues, his diarrhea,
right,
on the lactose overload episode. I don't think I've talked about his eczema on the podcast. Yeah, I don't remember if I have.
That doesn't sound familiar.
But he got eczema really bad, and those things combined just made me think that it was a food allergy thing. We talked to his doctor a few weeks ago at his 4-month appointment, and by that point that we had gone to the 4-month appointment, I had cut dairy from my diet for 3 weeks. thinking because dairy is the most common allergen food when you're nursing. And I had done it for 3 weeks, and we talked to her, and I hadn't seen any improvement at all. And she said, well, it'll be quicker if you just cut everything out, so that all top 8 allergens, and then do that for a month. And then if there's improvement, you can start adding things back in. And I did that, and it's been just over 3 weeks that I've been on this top 8 allergen-free diet. I kept the dairy out as well. So I've been dairy-free for 7 weeks, almost 7 weeks. And I'm just frustrated because I'm still not seeing an improvement he still has eczema. It's not as bad as it was previously, but we've been doing some other things to help it. And so I'm pretty sure it's those other things that we're doing, because we resumed doing baths, and we do coconut oil on him every night.
That does sound familiar. Maybe you mentioned that here.
Yeah. So anyways, everything's pretty much the same. But what's even more irritating is that we've introduced solid foods, as I talked about last week. And so now his poop is changing because of the solids that he's eating. So I can't even watch his poop to see if what I'm doing is improving. He hasn't had the bloody diarrhea, but I just really don't know if there's any improvement. So I don't really have I don't have the end of the story yet. Maybe I'll follow up in another podcast or two, but I'm still doing it. I'm still struggling through. My heart goes out to everyone who has food allergies, man. Having to eat like this all the time is really rough. I was hoping that it would improve, because then at least we would know. But I guess if nothing improves, then I can just stop doing it, because it's not the food that I'm eating. So that's a plus, I guess, that I only need to do this for 4 weeks, and then I can stop, rather than adding things in every 2 weeks, So we'll see what happens. He's doing fine. Attitude-wise, health-wise, weight gain-wise, everything is fine. And the eczema doesn't even bother him. So it's really just us doing everything we can to make sure he's as comfortable as possible. And he's doing well in the solids, and maybe that'll be the issue. Maybe we'll just transition to the solids, and he'll get over whatever it is that was happening with my breast milk. I don't know.
Obviously, you can't. It's just pure speculation, but have you had any gut feelings that could be something not in the top 8 allergens, some weird thing, I don't know, something weird? I
don't really eat anything. Well, I'll tell you what, when I cut dairy out, I substituted milk for almond milk because it's the cheapest and I like it and whatever. And so I had a bowl of cereal with almond milk every single day. And I also I was eating eggs, and I was eating more eggs because I wasn't having as much, other dairy or whatever. And eggs are really filling for me, and avocados and stuff. So I was basically having eggs every morning, and I was having almond milk throughout the day. And then he had bloody diarrhea for several days. And so then shortly after that was when we saw his doctor, and I got off everything, and I was like, I wonder if it's either eggs or nuts. Because when I was having them more excessively, he was having more digestive issues. So it may be that I wasn't eating them very much previously. Now that I'm eating none, like I said, he's doing okay. He doesn't have the bloody diarrhea anymore. So if it isn't something that I'm eating, I have no idea what it would be. So if it is something I'm eating, I'm thinking it's going to be either nuts or eggs, but we'll see. We'll see. It's probably not dairy because, like I said, I cut dairy for several weeks before, and then he had the bloody diarrhea when I wasn't eating dairy. So I hate this, this troubleshooting that we have to do. Why doesn't someone just have the answers?
Right.
I know there's a test they can do. They can analyze his poop or something and test it for a bunch of allergens, but that's not, they just don't want to do that. Right off the bat, they're just oh, you suffer for 4 weeks, and then we'll see what happens. And if it doesn't help, then we'll do some tests,
Hopefully he's cool in the meantime.
Yeah, right? But yeah, he's not dehydrated. He's, like I said, he's perfectly healthy in all other ways. So we're not super concerned. It's just annoying.
I'm sorry.
Well, I hope that you guys figure out whatever for him, but I also hope that you can start eating how you want to eat soon.
That would be nice. That would be nice.
Yeah.
I thought I would feel better. I thought I would feel, like people who go on a vegan diet and they're like, oh, I feel so great. I have so much energy, whatever. And I thought that I would, but I have slightly a little more energy and I've lost slightly more weight than normal, but nothing drastic. So at least I can look forward to going back to eating what I want to eat. That's a plus.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, my, I guess, update is we're focusing more on the kids trying to speak because we've been pretty much going with the flow. We've been saying things like identifying them casually, but we haven't really concentrated on anything. And then I remembered they have their 18-month checkup at the end of the month, and I thought, this always happens where the doctor goes through the list of whatever the assessment is, and I'm like, no, they can't do this. And she says, well, are you working on it? And I'm like, don't judge me. So I thought maybe I should work on it. And it's not everything. Some of the stuff is like way in advance. Like maybe at their 18-month, it'll have 24-month stuff. But usually there's some things that are just to see if they're ahead, and then some things that are from the past. And anyway, so aside from that, I realized that they're not really saying anything independently, at least that we can tell. They might be pointing to our dog and saying dog or something, or like when we're not around them. But anyway, so it got me slightly worried, and I've heard that there's really not much to worry about until they're 3. But that's just from somebody who was, I think, aspiring speech pathologist student. Like I haven't heard that from anybody with credentials. So if anybody else or either of you two have heard that and can give me some kind of second testament to that would be helpful. But I'm not sweating yet, but I am feeling like we probably should step it up with the encouragement and stuff like that, even though we have done a little bit. And I was looking into this before, but I hadn't signed up for it or anything. We've talked about her content in I think the first or second episode, but Talk the Talk has a program that's her thing, is like to help children communicate better and to speak better. And they do some things like they do more or all done. Well, Swiss does, but he just really screams. That's pretty much it. I mean, they indicate things, but not in a civil way. So I hope that the program helps. I don't know much about it yet, but hopefully I can give you guys an update. And we're hoping to have her on the show next season. And so hopefully I can give some raving reviews.
Yeah
From everything I've heard, that lady, whoever you were talking to, was correct. Yes, the
aspiring student. I was like, yeah, I just said talk the talk. Yeah, I know
that is correct. You shouldn't.
Yeah,
I think it's
okay.
5 words. I don't know what the exact benchmarks are, but I do know that from speech pathologists that I've talked to and just casually having conversations with friends, the general consensus is that you shouldn't be concerned until 3 years old. Kind of let them do their thing.
Yeah. I know that my mother-in-law was saying that her daughter wasn't speaking, and I don't know what that really looked like, but she said she wasn't speaking, and then about 2 she just started speaking practically full sentences. So I'm hoping that Buddy and Swiss are just acquiring information, and then they'll jump into it.
Could be that they're communicating with each other in some way too, which is fulfilling their need.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, they get what they need when they scream enough. We figured out.
Right.
So yeah. So I'll go ahead and do our product praise. I wanted to talk about these prenatals. Of course, it'll be on the show notes, but they're from Orthomolecular Products, but the title is Prenatal Complete with DHA. This is one of my favorite. Everybody has MTHFR, but about 15% of Caucasians have a mutation where they can't process B vitamins.
I have that.
So, oh, you do? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you've probably had to find vitamins with folate instead of folic acid, right?
I actually take a supplement in addition to my prenatals, and I don't remember what it's called, but I can find it for next time if our listeners are interested.
Same idea, right? Yeah, like you can't metabolize that.
Brittany, did you know that Jess couldn't? No, this is news. Oh,
I didn't know it was the same thing. Yeah. I'm not surprised because of things that we've talked about, but so this is not the only one that does this. Clearly Jess has one, and I have a supplement as well. I like this one, even though there's 4 tablets I have to take. And when I was pregnant, I really struggled. And so that's why I actually got a supplemental thing to dissolve in my mouth, because I was not about to have 4 tablets when, putting lots of stuff in your mouth or anything in your mouth can make you gag. But the reason why I also like these ones is because it has such a high amount. It has 1,000 micrograms. And I honestly can't speak to the amount that's recommended because I don't know if it's individualized. And I remember my doctor, my OB, and I were talking recently, and she was saying that it's some number that I can't remember, but that just the minimum is recommended is like 400 to 800 a day for any woman. And so maybe that's for any adult, but for women, and that you can have, I think, up to 4 times that amount. So that is a good product. Like I said, there's lots of them out there, but if you are an individual who are struggling with that, this is one that I recommend. You can get it online, I'm sure, but some doctor's offices as well carry it, and it's a little more expensive. It's for 30 days worth, or maybe it's even 25 days worth, and it's $55 to $60. So just to give you some frame of reference. Well, we are so excited to have Laurel Stark with us. So she is a mom of 2 girls, ages 6 and 18 months. She's originally from California, but has since relocated to Idaho. She had preeclampsia with both pregnancies, though her first was born full term at 38 weeks. And then she's going to talk about her second pregnancy in just a little bit. She also dealt with unexplained secondary infertility for 3 years, which is when you already have a child or multiple children, and then you have difficulty conceiving again. And she's here today to talk to us about micro-preemies. And that was completely a new term to me. I don't know, Cody, you had heard of it before, but Jess, obviously you'd known about that because you know each other. Mm-hmm. So do you want to tell us about what that means?
Sure. It was a new term to me, too. Definitely had to learn it on the fly when it happened. A micro-preemie is a baby that is born between 28 weeks or below. And what really matters is the weight. That's what makes a micro-preemie a micro-preemie. It has to be 1 pound, 14 ounces or smaller. If it's over 1 pound, 14 ounces, it is considered a preemie.
So my children were considered late-term preemies, I think, because they were born just before 36 weeks. I thought that's why, but now I'm wondering if it's weight. Do you know if that goes across the board for any kind of label like that, like preemies, micro-preemies? Is it always about the weight?
For micro-preemies, it is all about the weight. For other preemies, it's usually gestational age.
Okay.
Before 38 weeks, I think. Like after
37.
Is it 37? Yeah.
Did you have any indication that she would be born early? I know that might sound kind of silly, but was there anything happening in utero that they said, hey, heads up, or was it like, surprise?
Both.
Okay.
So I knew she was going to be not full term because I had another condition called Vasa Previa, which is similar to placenta previa, which is when the placenta forms over the uterus or over the cervix. Vasa previa is when the blood vessels form over the cervix. So you have to have a C-section before you go into labor. Because if you go into labor, then the blood vessels can burst and it's very bad. So the doctors had scheduled me for a C-section at 34 weeks, and I was going to be admitted at 32 to make sure that I didn't have any chance of going into labor. So I did know she was going to be a preemie and early, but not 23 weeks.
Oh, wow, yeah.
That was a surprise.
Did they give you any indication of how early did you expect, or was it still unknown?
I thought she was going to come at 34 weeks via C-section, but then a couple days after my first daughter, my oldest, her 5th birthday party, I started feeling very weird. The doctors were really amazed that I came in to get my blood pressure checked because they kept asking me how I knew and why I came in. And the symptoms are pretty insidious. I had nausea, and I hadn't had any nausea my entire pregnancy. I woke up, ate a banana, and then threw up. And it was really, really strange for me. I also felt very lightheaded, had an extreme headache for a few days that radiated from my shoulder up to my head. that wouldn't go away even with painkillers. And the dizziness was a big one. I remember sitting on my daughter's bed trying to get her ready for school and not being able to get up without the room spinning. And that's when I knew to go into the doctors and get my blood pressure checked. And I'm glad that I did, because obviously I had to be admitted immediately.
Oh my gosh, what a nightmare. I've always been afraid when I hear people say that, I've heard other friends say, oh yeah, I was told you should always be ready when you come in. You just might have to go into the labor and delivery like right away. And I, like Jess, a big planner, and I just really would have so much anxiety about that. How did you feel? Like, I mean, I knew you knew it was going to be early, but did that cause an anxiety for you?
Extreme anxiety. I panic. I remember sitting in the doctor's office, and my doctor is so sweet. She's amazing. And she had this look of pity on her face. And she just gave me her hands and said, you need to go into labor and delivery right now. And I looked at her and I just said, it's too soon. It's too soon. I can't. It's too soon. It's 23 weeks. Maybe next week. maybe later, but it's 23 weeks. And you've probably been told this too, that viability is 24 weeks. And that means your baby is more likely to survive outside of the womb after 24 weeks. And I wasn't there yet. And to me, that meant that she wouldn't survive, period. But that's not the case anymore. Many NICUs can take a baby 22, 23 weeks, and they do have a higher survival rate than they did even last year when Cleo was born.
Wow. That's
so
awesome.
What actually was happening to you? Like, why did you feel like that? Were your blood vessels bursting like what was going on?
So preeclampsia is when you have really high blood pressure. And when you have really high blood pressure, then you can have seizures, and you can, and then other things happen to your body. And so I progressed from preeclampsia to HELP syndrome, which is when your liver platelets or your liver enzymes go through the roof and your platelets drop. And platelets are what help your blood clot. And so if you have low platelets and you need a C-section and you can't clot, it's very dangerous. So the doctor was taking blood every 3 hours to make sure that I was still in a okay range to have my C-section. But once it reached a certain level, he knew to make that call. And so I was in the hospital for 4 days, constantly getting my blood checked to see if I could last just a bit longer.
Wow. So all these conditions that you had, or that the things that came up, are these related? Is it common to have multiple? I mean, like if you have not placenta previa, the other one you were talking about,
Vasa Previa.
Yes. Is it common to have preeclampsia with that, or are these? Did you just get hit with like the crap from nowhere, like crazy? Because this just sounds crazy to me. I'm like, oh my gosh! Every time you turn around, you're getting smacked with a new thing that just makes things more complicated.
Yeah. They are not common at all or linked. So when I got the Vasa Previa, or was diagnosed with that, which happened during the anatomy scan, they saw that and they let me know that it was, I believe my husband looked it up, and it was 10% of women or less get that. It's very rare. And then, but honestly, it has nothing to do with the health of the baby. Cleo was fine. She's healthy. She was developing normally. It's just how the blood vessels formed. I personally think that it contributed to my early preeclampsia because I was also very anemic. And when you're anemic and you have blood vessel issues going to the placenta, the only thing they know about preeclampsia is that it has to do with the placenta. They don't know why. They don't know how to prevent it too much. There's theories, but none of this is common and none of it is linked.
Wow.
So there's no guarantee it'll happen for a future pregnancy, or, and I'm not assuming you aren't having kids, but I just mean if you were, did they say you can expect this to happen again, or not necessarily because your first wasn't?
Well, my first, I did have preeclampsia.
Sorry, it wasn't like, wasn't there, let's see, you had preeclampsia, but then you didn't have
The Vasa Previa?
Yeah, thank you. I don't know why it's so hard to remember that word. Sorry.
No, I didn't have that, but I did develop preeclampsia at 38 weeks, and I did have to be induced for that, which actually I'm really grateful happened because I was much more prepared for everything I had to go through again. I knew about the magnesium. I knew what that felt like. I knew the panic that comes with that. I knew a lot more than I did before, but everything else was new. For future pregnancies, because I've had preeclampsia twice, it definitely increases my risk of it happening again. If you have it once, there's really no guarantee that you're going to have it again, but now that I've had it twice, it's almost guaranteed that I'll probably have it again, which is really scary.
Right.
So tell us about, what happened when Cleo was born? What did you go through with that?
It was the most terrifying thing I've ever gone through. I would not have been able to get through it without my husband, who was a complete rock the entire time. He didn't have any doubts at all that Cleo was going to survive. He knew from the minute he gave me that blessing that first day that everything was going to work out. I didn't. I definitely had my fears and my doubts. I also had my mother-in-law, and my sister, and all of them were there to be very comforting to me. But I was terrified. I've never had a C-section. That was my first time. I've never had a baby in the NICU. I've never had to go through any of this. It was surreal, and I can't believe I actually went through it.
So how big was she when she was born?
She was born 14 ounces, which is just under a pound, and roughly the size and weight of a soda can.
Wow.
Yikes. And we have we've got a picture of you with her, so our listeners will be able to see that. It's just unreal.
She was a tiny little bean, but my goodness, she was a fighter the whole time. When she was inside me, she was a kicker, like huge kicker from like way before you would think you'd be able to feel a baby kicking. I swear at 14 weeks, I could just feel her going at it. She was feisty from day one. Even the NICU nurses had to kind of tie her little hands and legs down to keep her from grabbing all her cords from day one. So she was a fighter, and she's always been curious and strong and a warrior, and she is my hero.
When you said that she was about the size and the weight of a can of soda, was her length that short? Or how long?
She was a little longer. She was 10 inches long, which is less than a foot.
Right. It's still tiny, tiny, tiny.
Yeah.
So were you able to find, outside of your family, because I imagine this is something that seems really lonely, going through this situation, just feeling like you're the only person that is having to go through this trial. And I know for trials that I've experienced and that we've talked about on this podcast, it's really important to find a community. Were you able to find a community, and what did that look like? What was the process? How was that for you?
It was very different from what I thought it was going to be like. From day one, before she was even born, the neonatologist said, you're in for a long road. Every nurse, every doctor, you're in for a long road. You're in for a long road. And honestly, I just kept telling them, I don't care if she lives. I will go through whatever I need to go through. I just need her to live. I will. She can be in the NICU as long as she needs to be to grow. But if she lives, that's all I care about. So the community that I found was actually at the Ronald McDonald House when we had to have her flown down to Primary Children's Hospital because our NICU up here didn't have a pediatric surgeon. And at 5 days, she got an intestinal perforation, so a little hole in her intestines, which was leaking out fluid. Sounds worse than it was. I can talk about it now without any problems, but it was very scary at the time. And they didn't know if she was going to need surgery, which a tiny baby needing surgery, it's just crazy to even think about. So they had to fly her down, and she was stable the whole time, which is such a miracle. And when we got down there, we were placed in the Ronald McDonald House, which is a charity that has this huge, beautiful hotel-like location in Salt Lake City, about 5 minutes from the hospital. It's free of charge for parents of babies or children who need to stay at the hospital. And once you are in and you have a room, there is no amount to how long you're allowed to stay.
Wow.
It's amazing. And
yeah, that is amazing.
And the parents there and the families there are all going through hard, difficult medical traumas. There are kids with cancer, kids who need limb amputations. There are other NICU parents. And there's a big cafeteria, so all meals are together. And everyone is so sympathetic and so wonderful. My 6-year-old loves it. It's her favorite place in the world. Because they cater to children. She would go, there's crafts every night. There are people who come and donate their time and their talents to keep the kids entertained. There are magic shows some nights. There's movie nights. It's just a massive blessing. I'm actually really grateful that we had to go down there, even though we were away from home.
Did you meet anyone who was in the same situation, well, a similar situation with having a micro-preemie at the Ronald McDonald House, or is it just such a big variety of medical issues that there's not, or it's so uncommon?
There is a large variety of people traveling there from all over. There was another preemie parent or family there. They were from Hawaii, and they were on a different schedule than us. They would sleep during the day and they were up during the night. And so they had a little boy who was born about a few weeks later than Cleo and about a pound. And he was having a lot of complications too. And we would see each other in the NICU and we'd walk past each other and say hi and ask how each other's babies were doing. And but they were the only ones who also had a micro-preemie. Everybody else had other situations that they were going through.
Wow.
How long did you stay there?
The first time we were there 2.5 months. And then when she was completely risk-free of needing surgery, they flew her back to Idaho in December. We went September, and then they flew us back in December. And then she got a really bad infection in February, and they thought she might need surgery again. So they had to fly her back down in February, and we stayed until April.
And that was all, I mean, when you say you went back in December, she went back to the NICU in Idaho?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, she went back to the NICU. She did not come home.
So she was total in the NICU from September until when? April? Is that what you said?
6 months.
Yeah. Wow.
So how do they fly? Is it like a private plane, or I mean, who's like? I don't understand.
Helicopter.
Right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, like a life flight.
It's a life flight. So it's a helicopter life flight. Yes,
that makes more sense. I'm like going through like baggage. I mean, it doesn't seem very sanitary. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
The funny part is she's been on 3 helicopter rides before, anyone else in the family's gotten a chance to. And
lucky.
Yeah. They would invite Mike or I to go in the helicopter with her, but because we had Nova, my 6-year-old, with us, we declined every time because we would have to drive back with our little one, and I didn't want her to feel abandoned.
Yeah, that's so sensitive. So when she went in December, or wherever you were referring to going in the hospital in Idaho, is that at Ermac? Is that what it's called?
Yes.
Is that, okay, in Idaho Falls?
Yes.
So since April, has she been able to be home?
Yes, she came home April 2nd, 2019. And so she's been home 1 year, which is really exciting. And she's amazing. She had to come home on a low flow of oxygen, which means she has kind of the nasal cannula, which hooks up to her nose and goes around her ears. And then she has to be hooked up to a tank that I have to haul around, or had to. She's no longer on it during the day.
Oh, yay!
It was very low flow, which means just a few puffs every now and then to give her a little extra boost. And then she also came home with a G-tube, which is how do I explain it? It's just a little button that goes straight into her stomach and can pump food right into her stomach, because she was on a ventilator for so long that she developed an oral aversion, which means anything in her mouth, she will clamp down and not want it. So she did really terribly when she tried to learn how to suck from a bottle. It just did not go well. And she couldn't get the calories she needed through her mouth. So in order to come home, she needed a G-tube, which was a whole other learning process, but it's actually really easy, and we got it down.
And she still has that, right? The
yeah,
G-tube?
She'll probably have it for a while. She's still very developmentally delayed, even though she's 18 months. I would say she's closer to like 6 months developmentally She did come home with a little bit of brain trauma, but she's doing really well. Her neurologist is very pleased with her progress. But me, impatient mom, is like, you're 18 months. Can you grow a little faster?
Well, I saw your video. I saw she says mama now, right? Or something like that. I saw that. That was awesome. It was so exciting.
It's very exciting. I mean, because of her injury, they didn't know. The thing with brain injuries is they really don't know a lot about the future, what that means, how she's going to develop. It's a range from she could be nonverbal in a wheelchair or perfectly fine, and nobody would ever know the difference. Mm-hmm. And it really just depends on her and time, and we'll see. Mm-hmm. So the fact that she's trying to speak and trying to say mama and can clearly say it now is phenomenal. It's huge. So I'm really excited.
It's so awesome.
That is awesome.
So I have a question going back a little bit. So she was in the NICU total 6 months. How did you and Mike cope with that, like with your daily lives? What was it like living? Because that's not just like when you think, I mean, I think it was Buddy, right? That went into the NICU for just a few hours. Brittany.
Oh, me. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was probably total like 10 hours. Max.
Yeah, like when you think about babies, you know, sometimes they have to go to the NICU. You don't necessarily think for an extended period of time. Like you have to eventually go back to normal life. So how did you guys do that? And if you have any words of wisdom for any listeners maybe who might go through that or have babies in the NICU, like how do you live life that way, I guess?
Well, you have to give yourself a lot of grace. Some parents can be there at their baby's bedside 24 hours, 7 days a week. But if you have other kids or jobs or anything, or you live far away from your NICU, you can't do that. And that's okay. It's okay not to be there every second of every day, especially if you have a preemie as young or slightly older than mine, who really isn't aware of very much going on. I know that she knew when we were there and we sang to her and spoke to her, but when we weren't there, she didn't suffer because of it. There were always people there. There were nurses there. So kind, so compassionate, wonderful people who really, really care about your baby. And even though you're going to feel the mom guilt, because we always feel the mom guilt, no matter what, you do have to forgive yourself for not being there all the time because we're human and that's okay.
That's really reassuring. I appreciate you saying that because even though when I also had a C-section and I don't know if it's similar for you or if most people post C-section feel like this, but I felt very groggy, almost just like I was just, like I'd been woken up, you know, and didn't get enough sleep. And so plus, I mean, after you deliver anyway, I'm sure you're tired, but I just remember being very much more interested in sleeping than going to hunt down my child in the NICU. And my daughter, Swiss, she was just in the nursery just down the hall. And I did see them that day, but then later, I think it was the next day when I was in the hospital, he was in the NICU for a little while. And I don't remember what was going on with me, but I remember my husband and his sister, who had just come to visit, went up to see him in the NICU, I think just through the window. And a few months ago, I was thinking about this and feeling really bad that I wasn't like, oh, I want to come. I was like, hey, have fun. See ya. And I don't know if it's because I had another child right there that I would probably need to do something with, or because I was like, I get a sleep or whatever. I don't know. But I knew that I felt zero guilt at the time. And later, like I said, like closer to now, I was just feeling so guilty that I didn't want to be there earlier. And I just thought, oh man, what if he just felt so abandoned? Hopefully he had no idea. I mean, he kept his eyes closed a lot of the time. He couldn't really figure out how to eat, you know, things like that. The reason he needed to be in the NICU. So hopefully it's because, you know, he felt supported by the people around him. And when he was with me, but those in between times, he was hopefully just sleeping or something.
Definitely. I remember feeling something very similar after my C-section. All I wanted to know was that she was intubated and that she was okay, because that was the big concern because she was so small they didn't know if they would even be able to intubate. But Mike came in, and that's my husband, and said, you know, she was successfully intubated, she's breathing, she's doing okay. I could actually start to recover from my C-section. And I remember the nurse coming in and asking if I wanted to get out of bed and get in a wheelchair and go down to the NICU, and saying no, because I had just had a C-section and you want me to get out of bed?
Right. No kidding.
And the fact that I wouldn't be able to hold her, I wouldn't really be able to touch her, I would just be able to see her. And I really needed that 24 hours to just recover mentally, physically. And I didn't feel this immediate urgency to see her. Mike could see her. My parents could see her. People I loved were there with her. I knew she was okay and being taken care of. And I needed to take care of me this time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's so good. Such well put. I was just going to ask if you can touch on what life is like now. I know you said that some like her low flow oxygen during the day has been stopped, but I know from what I've seen on social media and things that I've heard from Jess and what you had mentioned earlier, that it's almost like you never go outside from the pandemic. It just seems like it's really hard and probably dangerous, right, to leave the home.
Oh yeah. I mean, we've been isolating for a long time since she came home from the NICU. And right when we were about to go explore the world, because now she's 18 months and flu season was going to be over, we get hit with COVID. So we're still isolating, but we're pros at it now. We're okay with it. It is hard, but we have everything that we need here. Her daily life, we do a lot of physical therapy with her. She needs to do a lot of muscle strengthening. And she doesn't really enjoy tummy time. She still needs it. Yes, she can do tummy time with her G-tube, even though that's right there in her belly. It doesn't hurt her or anything. It's just like having an earring in your ear. It doesn't hurt. It's just there. So she does tummy time, but she's still not really fantastic at it. She's not rolling consistently. She doesn't sit up on her own without support. And so we need to do a lot of exercises with her, and we do virtual PT now. They used to come to our house every week, but now we do it through not Zoom, but another platform.
How do they just tell you what to do with her?
When they're here in person, they do it themselves, and I basically observe, and then they write down what my homework is, like working on, hip stretches, or I have like this wedge that she sits on and she can prop her hands up with it so she can get more arm strength, practicing sitting up and twisting her different ways so that her muscles move in different ways. She also needed eye surgery, so we do a lot of sight therapy where we move toys up and down and all around, so she has to focus in different directions and things like that. So we have to do that every day with her to make sure, she's progressing.
You call her, what do you call her? Your forever baby? Is that what you said?
She's my forever baby, yeah. Because she's been basically in the same developmental milestone category since we brought her home from the NICU.
We were talking about that. I think it might have been just last week about which stage do you prefer, like more infant, or you don't even have to decide.
Yeah.
I know.
Hopefully that's the stage you like.
Right? It's like with my first one, Nova, my 6-year-old. I remember her going so fast with development. I mean, you guys know. It's like 1 minute they're babies and they're newborns and they can't do anything, and then the next minute they're sitting up and they're learning their first words, and then they're running around, and it's crazy. You blink and it happens.
Yeah.
But with Cleo, I really get to enjoy her being a snuggly baby for a really long time. And my parents and my in-laws, who are missing seeing their grandkids so much right now, I'm like, don't worry about it. She's in the same stage she was 3 months ago.
We're pausing for you.
Yeah, she's still exactly the same size in 6-month clothes, so don't worry about it. You're not missing much. But she's really curious too. I mean, she's mentally there. She loves people. The second I walk in the room, she just screeches with joy and flails her little arms and legs, and she loves her sister. She gives her all the smiles, and she laughs at everything. So she's really fun.
So is there anything that you would want the public to know about micro-preemies, whether it be information about the, I want to say condition, the situation. I don't know what the word would be for that, or things to be that the public could know to be more considerate, because often we appreciate guests sharing things to help people be more sensitive to other people's situations.
I'd say first, not relating to micro-preemies per se, but just about preeclampsia. I'm sure Jess knows because she's probably seen me crusade on Facebook about seeing and understanding what the symptoms of preeclampsia are, because some people think that, ankle swelling or finger swelling is normal, and it's not necessarily normal. You should definitely get your blood pressure checked if you're swelling a lot during pregnancy. Preeclampsia can start anytime from 20 weeks on. So below 20 weeks, you won't be preeclampsic, but you can be pre-preeclampsic. So I just say keep an eye on it. If you're getting insane headaches, if you're seeing black dots in your vision, if you get nauseous out of the blue and just feel funky, go to the doctor. Don't hesitate. Go to the doctor. It's not just your life that could be in danger. I was lucky, very lucky, that Cleo had a steady heartbeat the whole time. She was never in distress, ever. She was completely stable. I was the one having the problems, but that's not always the case. So always get checked if you feel strange.
And I love that, because who knows what strange is, but it could be something, right?
I know it sounds super vague. And when the doctors asked me, why did you go in? And all I could say is I felt funky. You know when you feel weird and off and when something is wrong. Especially when you're going through a pregnancy and you are hyper aware of all your symptoms constantly.
Yeah.
Every single moment, because you really want the morning sickness to end. You really want, the cravings to change or start or whatever. So when I woke up that morning, I knew something was wrong. And if you have that gut feeling, just go to the doctor. It could be nothing, but it could also be life-saving.
Yeah.
The other thing about micro-preemies, when she came home on oxygen, some people would make comments if they saw her, because we did have to take her out about every now and then. You can't completely isolate if you have another child at home. And every now and then we would go out to the store. We would go to Nova's gymnastics class. And I remember one comment in particular was, "Oh, she doesn't know how to breathe." And it's just like, she can breathe. She just
was this from an adult?
Help. Yes.
An adult said that? I mean, yeah.
So just be sensitive if you see a child who is a little different, who maybe has, something medically different about them. Obviously when we go out now, she has her G-tube, which is just a cord coming out from under her shirt or under her onesie. So she looks like she has a charger constantly attached to her because it's white. Anyway, and we don't get too many comments about that, but every now and then you'll run into someone who just wonders what's up with that. And so just be sensitive about the wording that you use. I welcome questions, honestly, and most people welcome questions. It's just don't assume things and just ask nice things about the baby. Don't say, "What's wrong with your baby?"
Yeah.
Well, thank you again, Laurel. We really appreciate you coming and sharing your insights with us. It's always good for us to hear new perspectives, but also we want to share that information with others and hope that it benefited others like it's benefited us. We'll go ahead and wrap up our episode, and I actually have the recipe today. Today, I want to talk to you guys about Zuppa Toscana. Now, I don't know if you're fans of going to Olive Garden, but if you haven't tried this recipe, it is delicious. I think even picky eaters will enjoy it. So with sausage, potatoes, bacon, and just a smidgen of kale, if you want, we like to substitute it for spinach. It is a really good recipe for both winter days where you want to be warm, but also some of those chillier days in the spring or the summer. So we'll have that posted on the website as always, and we hope you enjoy the show notes there too. Be sure to catch our next episode where we will be talking about kids and pets. And you can check out the products that we talked about in our show notes at partumthemess.com. And then also check out our social media pages on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Partum the Mess. All right, join us next week and Partum the Mess.
We're making memories.